Yeah, it was hard to hear all those bad news. And did you say it all happened in one day for you?
Hello and welcome to another Two Sharps One Flat discussion. Today we have a very special guest, Ethan Lacey.
Hello. I'm a collaborative pianist in the Hamilton area and glad to be here.
We're so glad for you to be here as well. And if you guys didn't know, all of us actually went to the same university, so we've all, we've known each other before, and it's just so nice with all this technology we're able to meet up and have some discussions about music and connect over that. Ethan had actually contacted me a while ago, and he was asking, hey, do you guys think you would ever have a discussion about classical musicians in the future after having this COVID scenario that we have here? And I thought, hey, that would be a really good idea to talk about. I think for both teachers, educators, and performers, we were forced to embrace technology as best as we can when it comes to having to teach online. And I think also for performers, learning how to live stream, and for orchestras to have to live stream, that's a big thing I think classical musicians had to do. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like sometimes the classical sphere used to be against technology and live streaming because we're so much about having to be with the performer, feeling the live energy, that sometimes that doesn't get captured over the internet and technology.
I actually started looking into online teaching last fall before all this happened because I've been moving a lot, so it's just very practical and I want to continue with my students long term. I remember at that time, it was looked down upon a lot. People were like, oh, online teaching, it's all fraud. There's no way you could teach online. And then literally a couple months later, everyone jumped online. And even though at first a lot of people were hesitant, I'm glad it broke the boundaries of being able to basically study with anyone, anywhere.
Ethan, you're a collaborative pianist, so how has COVID affected you? I imagine it's difficult to even be with someone in the same room to do what you do awesomely at.
Yeah, it's been tricky, but it's forced us to get creative, I think, as collaborative pianists in general, to look at what doesn't work and what can't work. For example, one thing I've just started doing is recording backing tracks for singers. So what I have them do is I have them send me a recording of them singing or a recording that they really like that they base their sort of performance on. And then we do our best. We kind of go back and forth and I record something, send it to them and they think, this is great. Can I have it pull back a bit or accelerate here? It's especially tricky for recit, as you can imagine, because those things are just so much fun to accompany. But it's an exciting project to work on. So things like that. I have also worked with a few people in person, but super social distance.
Do you have to wear a mask?
Yeah, largely. The most recent one I did was actually right before Peel exploded. I worked at a recording studio in just outside of Peel region. And yeah, they were really good about maintaining impeccable social distancing, so which was good.
And how are the singers dealing with it? Because I know they were targeted first because they were like, oh, droplets, you can't sing.
So the singers that I've worked with, they've been a mixed bag. Some people were just in a hole, emotionally when it happened. I guess in a largely speaking, we all were, all us musicians and creative types. But I think they've been staying really positive for the most part. The singers I typically work with are excited to find any possible way to do anything singing or having to do with songs. So whether that's attending a digital master class, performing at a digital master class, and occasionally even performing with the master clinician in a socially distanced manner over the internet so people can see what they've done. Yeah, they're really ingenuitive when they come to how they find ways to perform during this time.
Are you looking forward to when COVID will be over and we have a vaccine, hopefully, and then you can return back to your normal life? Or do you see that this kind of recording stuff might be another outlet for you and a way to maybe be able to accompany people who may not be in your area, maybe internationally, and still be able to make an income?
Yeah, I am. I like, especially that the sort of what we were talking about there briefly in the beginning, the stigma of performing digitally or without a live audience has largely been removed. And I hope that attitude remains after the pandemic sort of subsides. But I'm excited about the fact that there's more avenues than ever, kind of ironically speaking, after all this has happened, that there's so much more opportunity now if we are remaining positive and finding ways to largely be creative in how we are creative.
So I was looking at the Spanish flu, actually, and how that pandemic affected the arts community. Apparently, like, it was very similar in I don't know if you guys know about the Spanish flu, but there were a lot of lockdowns and concert halls closed and everything. So kind of like what we're going through right now. And apparently, record companies were having a great time because they were selling CDs. They're like, you can listen to a concert at home. And when everything opened back up, audiences were really excited to go back. And they were comparing it to now, and they're saying the losses expected now are greater. Do you think that the audiences will be pouring back into the concert halls when this is over, or will things be different this time around?
I think the audience will appreciate when all the arts, theater start up again. And just from talking to people, everyone misses going to plays, going to musicals, going to the cinema and watching movies. You know, even though we have Netflix and all those Amazon Prime and all those subscription series that you could, watch endless TV shows and movies, it's not the same as going somewhere to watch something. And I think it's the same for music as well. I think people miss being at a concert and maybe have a chance to talk to the performers too. People enjoy that. So just hearing you mentioning that people are looking forward to that day that everything is back to normal kind of gives me hope. I know it's going to be a long time from now, but I'm excited for that.
I think it took about 2 years or so for everything to return back to normal after the Spanish flu. I actually read that I think Rachmaninoff got it, and then once the doctors were like, you should stay in bed a little bit longer, and he was like, nah, I have a recital to prepare for. I'm getting out of here.
I'm not to be a pessimist, but my only concern with that when things get back to normal, replying to your original comment about the whether people will flock back, is that classical audiences have traditionally been supported by older, wealthier, kind of financially well set up people who grew up with that music. And I think they're the demographic that were hit the hardest by the sort of critical reactions to the pandemic, as well as the fact that those who survived, and hopefully there are very, very many, are going to have a change in their attitude towards going out, and they'll have a sort of concern for going out and not getting sick, so they may limit their going out. So that can affect the sort of discretionary spending that went into supporting classical audiences.
I also had a few pessimistic thoughts, but I was just thinking about, how there are a lot of businesses that are going under now, and then people are saying, oh, well, they were already failing before the pandemic, and this just kind of pushed them, right? I feel like a lot of orchestras are on the brink of bankruptcy anyways. I hope that they will survive, but then that's also, a reality that they have to find that funding somewhere and hopefully rely more on profits than help from organizations and patrons.
I know that at least our government has tried to give Canadians and to support the arts with many different forms of funding. And I think although we have that and we're very blessed to have that, we still rely, I know the TSO is still relying on donations and actively seeking it out. We should really be supporting our orchestras, our operas as much as we can if we can.
I don't think that it's specific to music in general, but I think classical music has a specific problem of its own that we need to figure out how to promote this to more people. That way, hopefully, we'll get more interest and more audiences out there at concerts.
Well, speaking to that, there's a great classical FM article on the internet posted, I think, sometime in late March, so right in the beginning of the pandemic, that spoke to sort of a visible democratization of classical music and making it much more accessible and available for people, in that now everyone was wearing, a tuxedo shirt on their top and sweatpants on the bottom at home, or just showing up in their daily outfit and just watching Maxim Vengerov play a violin concerto in wherever he was, but we're here in our living room. And so there's no longer that, oh, what do I wear? Do I clap now? You can talk over him playing if you really wanted to, not that you should, but but I think that because of this online overture, that people are able to now see a lot more classical music, and they don't have to worry about all those established sort of traditions and rituals that they don't necessarily feel like they're in on.
I also think that a lot of the audiences that I'm seeing online are actually young people that are students and just learning about classical music and really excited about classical music and listening to different recordings and concerts. So I think it's important that funding not only going into the orchestras and everything, but that those people are still able to study music, because I know financially a lot of the families that I teach were unable to continue for at least a while throughout the pandemic because of job loss and everything. So I think music education is really important for continuing to create young audiences for the future.
Speaking about all these young audiences, I'm kind of happy that classical music was forced to embrace technology, because a younger audience, they're on their phone all the time. It's the TikTok, it's the Instagram, it's everything. So I was kind of almost super happy and excited to hear that some people were so overwhelmed with the number of choices of different performers they could be listening to over the different platforms that they could be streaming for. They're like, I don't know what to choose. And I was like, I wish I had a time where I was like, I don't know if I should go to Montreal to go see someone, if I go to Toronto to see someone, if I go to Paris. Like, you can just do that in your room. If you wanted, you could stream them all at the same time. Dan, I know that you were you auditioned and you got into the National Youth Orchestra. How has that experience been? Because by the time it started, that's when COVID hit.
So I was really excited to tour Germany, Croatia, and Slovenia in the summer. But obviously with COVID, that didn't happen. At first, they canceled the European tour, and they said, "Oh, we'll just keep it to Canada." And then, it hit Canada as well, so that all got canceled, and it was just an online learning session. I just got emails from them saying that they are making plans for next year, and they can't plan any tours because they can't get anyone to sponsor them. They don't know that the pandemic would be over by then, so it would be irresponsible of them to try to plan a tour. So for 2021, they decided it's going to be online again, and they will try to make it better than this time, which makes sense because they have more time to prepare for this. Just the past summer, they were kind of thrown into this whole pandemic, so everything just changed last minute. But yeah, I was really excited to tour, but that's how it is. I think everyone has their plans kind of thrown apart. The Olympics was postponed, and who knows if that's going to happen in 2021.
Yeah, for sponsors, it's definitely tricky to know what's actually going to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's a big thing for arts supporters. You want to make sure that you're supporting organizations that are making good decisions. During this pandemic, that's even more true now, because they don't want to waste money on people who are making bad decisions, and who knows where the money goes, right?
There were unfortunately a lot of concert halls and opera halls that had to close down. How long, for just a rough estimate, how long do you think it would take for all this to come back, if you think those organizations would be able to come back? Because there's one where we have to wait for the audience to kind of recover and feel comfortable to come back in. But for some of the orchestras that have gone under, do you think they would be able to come back?
I think some can't, depending on the size and how they were operating prior to the pandemic. I think it's hard to stay, just like restaurants.
Yeah.
Some can afford to stay closed for an X amount of time and they can just come right back. But some are operating in such small margin that being closed for 4 months is too much, and it's almost a year. Isn't that crazy?
For all of us musicians, like when COVID hit, we were just like, well, there goes a lot of our income immediately, and a lot of time for it to come back when we do start to recover.
Yeah, I feel really bad for people who rely on gigs for all of their income, because that was a really sudden shock for them.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was weird that I think it was March
Yeah.
13th. I was out for dinner with a friend. We were talking, and then we got the news on our phones pretty much at the same time that we were going into lockdown and things were stopping. And then I started just getting email after email like, this festival's been canceled. We're no longer going to need you for this. We're looking forward to working with you in the future, but and it was like my entire 2020 and 2021 evaporated in one day. It was crazy.
Yeah. It was hard to hear all those bad news. And did you say it all happened in one day for you?
It seemed like that. In reality, it was probably more like a week, but I think March 13th was the one where I felt like almost like lighter than air leaving the restaurant, like empty or something. It was weird.
Was that Friday the 13th, by the way? I think
It was.
It was
Yeah.
because my student's birthday was on that day.
Oh, yeah?
So I remember.
I didn't really believe in bad luck and Friday the 13th until, 2020.
Dan, I know you were going for some competitions too.
Yeah, I had competitions planned. I had a recital planned in Italy that got canceled real quick. I think Italy got hit hard really early.
Yeah.
And then I had a Beethoven Triple Concerto that I was supposed to perform in with the youth orchestra in the city. And that got canceled. The whole season got canceled. And just everything is canceling left and right. So I almost got desensitized to these bad news. When I read the emails from NYO for 2021, I was just like, huh.
If you guys could go back in time to when March and our lockdown came, would you have any advice for your past self going into this lockdown?
I think if I knew it was going to be a long haul, I would have mentally prepared for it better. I wouldn't have wasted a month or 2 or 3. I feel like I just stopped practicing, and just everything became less focused and less goal-oriented.
I think that was it for me, because I had some concerts planned, and so I was practicing a specific program, and it was at the point where I was like, okay, like I have a month to go, so I'm like pretty ready. I just have like a bunch of things, and then that happened, and then it just like I was like, well, now I don't feel like working on anything.
Yeah.
And then now I'm like, okay, it's time to start planning for future concert programs, because when this ends, I don't want to be a useless potato. So I actually messaged the group and I was like, guys, assign me some list etudes or something.
For me, I think the advice I would give myself or anyone, if I could go back, was not to romanticize the recent past, and that the way we used to do things has changed slightly for the foreseeable future. That's not necessarily a bad thing, and it doesn't mean that won't return. That previous way of doing things won't return in the future when this all is abated. I don't play a lot of concerti because collaborative pianists have no time for that, or at least that's what I used to be like. Now I make time for everything. So I started playing Rock 2, which is, among other things, like a fantastic stretchy A2, which I love.
Yes.
I'm trying to play all the first chords solid, and it's like crunchy and awesome. But yeah, so I gave myself the goal of doing something that I won't necessarily even have to do one day. I don't necessarily have to play Rock 2, but now I can say that I can, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that concerto stretched out my hands, especially my left hand.
Yeah.
So
it's a beast.
Very useful.
If I could go back in time and give my past self some advice, like you, Dan, I would say get in it for the long haul. And I would tell myself, if you find a webcam, buy 2 of them or more, because you're going to need more in the future. Especially if you're online teaching, like piano, multiple angles really do help. And I would also tell myself, reconnect or reform a good musical or creative support group. because you're going to be locked in your area for so long that you don't have communication with other people, and it's so easy to have that motivation to even play music for yourself because we're all just like too sad for ourselves. So it's good to have that in the stretch of COVID and also hopefully after as well. And I would also tell myself, don't be afraid to play for yourself too. Like, you don't necessarily have to be like, I need to find X, Y, and Z and plan 5 different programs so when we go back to normal, I'm ready to go. Because this might be the once in the lifetime where you can actually just sit down and be like, no, I'm going to learn that Rock 2 concerto just for myself. And enjoy music in that stress-free environment where you don't have to play it for someone's accompanying or any of that. You know, find ways that you can enjoy this pandemic despite all the financial toughness or just the whole slew of everything.
That's also like my last piece of advice to myself would actually be to go offline or off social media, because I feel like there's a pressure, like you have to stream everything you're playing. And I feel like that kind of pushed me away from playing. So just taking the time to play for myself and enjoy being offline, because we are online even more than before the pandemic. So just being not overwhelmed by just staring at, your phone or computer all day, even though the editors have to do that to keep this channel alive. So respect.
Team editors.
Oh, this is that. Like,
1, 2, 3.
Yeah. Oh, that was
We'll
really
edit that
cool.
together.
Focus.
Before we do go, do you guys have one positive thing that you would be looking forward towards for the music industry once this pandemic is over? My hope and my optimism is I'm hoping that the old platform where we were supported, as Ethan said before, mainly from like the wealthier generation, the older generation, and I'm hoping the young generation, this is where we can kind of bridge the gap, where it all molds nicely, whether we have technology, whether we have concerts as usual in person, that hopefully all these avenues will really help classical music and just music in general really blossom.
I'm looking forward most to hopefully seeing a change in attitude as regards online performances and just the whole online scene in general. I think that with Spotify and streaming and that sort of thing, it was sort of like a Silk Road, or like mysterious, ooh, you'll get what we give you when you stream so many streams or something like that. And it's really unfortunate. I remember reading a Guardian article about the English violinist Tasman Little, and she, being this amazing virtuoso violin performer, she had 5 million streams on Spotify. She made £12, or like $16 Canadian, for 5 million streams. So that's completely incongruent with where we're going. I hope that because we've been forced to reevaluate how and destigmatize how online performances work, that there will be a reinvestigation into what we're worth when we put our content on the internet.
Speaking of like pricing of music, because like when things are online, they're often cheaper. I do think that music should be more affordable, or classical music concerts, but I also hope that people won't stay away from them, because they'll be like, I can get it cheaper over here on Spotify for like 5 cents.
it's not necessarily about the industry itself, but I'm really excited to play around with my equipment and record more music. I would like to hopefully record some albums in the future. So I gotta make some plans for repertoire and see what fits nicely together. So I'm really excited for that.
I would like to play some chamber music once I stop moving, which will hopefully be 2021. So hopefully I can actually go out and meet other musicians.
I would love to just mention that during my time in isolation, I read a really good book by Carol Dweck called The Growth Mindset. And it's fantastic. It's
such a good book.
All about not holding on to what you think you are and what you think you can be, and what the limits of having that open mind. That was fantastic. And of course, the Crushing Classical podcast hosted by Tracy Friedlander, was just phenomenal.
Thank you so much for coming on Two Sharps, One Flat discussion, Ethan. It's so wonderful to see you again, to talk to you, and to talk about music. We'd love to have you back on whenever you're available. You're a welcome guest.
Thanks for having me.
And if you guys have any questions or discussions, let us know down in the comments below. We would love to start a healthy discussion down there. Let us know how you've been surviving through this pandemic. And let us know what you think the classical music industry or just music in general is going to grow into. We would love to hear from you down in the comments down below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps us out. And hit the bell notification. We will see you again in our next video. Don't forget to stay healthy, take care of yourself, wear your mask. Bye!
Bye.